Hi everyone, and welcome to the garage. Welcome to the show. What do you think? Suicide doors and all. I haven't driven this one for so long, I've really kind of forgotten how to do it. Welcome to the program. Around the city, the state, the country and the world, and I say that because with the blessing of the internet and of course the show this season going round Australia, we've got a much bigger audience for the court of public opinion. A brand new season, and thank you for your company, and I hope you stay and enjoy the show. A little confession to begin with. I was up in Sydney helping a friend with a house that's going on the market, and the real estate bloke said, you really have to get that moss off those stairs. It's very, very dangerous. And you know what? He turned out to be very, very right. There I was, scraping away, stepped back to look at my handiwork and base over apex, and I can tell you that it's only a very kind doctor, strong painkillers and anti-inflammatories that allow me to stand here and talk to you or annoy you, whatever, or amuse you today. But it's great to have your company in the court of public opinion. One of the questions we're going to take to the people today is the polls. You know, the galaxy polls and the news polls, and just to try and find out from people how influenced are they by the polls. There are a couple of really bad polls, stinkers in fact, for the current Labor government. So I don't know where that will go, but I did get this. Amber, if you could just bring it into shot. I got this at Scammell's yesterday, and I thought to myself, history. By the end of the week, and a week, as they say in politics, is an awfully long time. Do you remember that? Interestingly enough, December the 13th was the day that they called on the election. And when did Julia call hers on? The 13th of September, I think. I'd have kept away from the 13th, really. Anyway, the polls are extraordinary, to my mind, because if there it is, demonstrably, you are doing the wrong thing. You may not be doing the wrong thing, but clearly in the eyes of the general public, you are doing the wrong thing. So the sensible bit would be to say, well, let's not bang this round peg into the square hole anymore. Let's try and find out, maybe a focus group. Maybe do what we do, go out and talk on the streets, but find out what it is that people don't like about your government. Because it doesn't matter. We, in the court of public opinion, will get it right, and we'll get it right every single time. Now, is it her voice? Is it her manner? Is it her style? Or is it the fact that we don't like being lied to? Or we don't like the kind of Machiavellian stabbings in the back of opponents? I mean, I don't really know what it is. All I know is that we do need the election, so let's bring it on. Bob Such will be with us in a couple of moments. Stay with us. I don't know if you saw that front page story in the Advertiser, foreign land grab. You know, when I read it, it's not news because this has been going on forever. I mean, people have been buying up land, big amounts of land, Saudis, Qatar, China. People have been doing that for a long, long time. And they're paying, according to the story, way above the market price, and then getting them to sign a confidentiality agreement so that the word doesn't get out, as if it wouldn't get out. Now, you know the idea of the paddock to the plate? What we are not looking at in this country is that it is our paddock and it is going to their plate in China or God knows where. I was listening to Alan Jones when I was in Sydney, and I just listen to this. I find this fascinating. From the Bureau of Statistics, he was rattling these facts and figures off. From last December, 40% fewer farmers in Australia, 40% fewer farmers growing our food than 30 years ago. Farmers of all kinds, 157,000 in Australia, that's 106,000 fewer farmers than 30 years ago. 25% of the farmers are now over 65 years of age. The median is 53. So you can understand young people are not going on the land. The older people are going to sell the land. You know, We won't know what to do until we go down to the supermarket and there's nothing on the shelves, and then, folks, the penny might drop. We simply have to make sure that we have food security in this country. Let me introduce you to a marvellous, kind of out-of-the-mould politician. His name is Bob Such, member for Fisher, independent. Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for coming by the garage.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about this bill. It's not the first bill to legalise euthanasia that you've put up. This is the second one?
No. Originally I put up one that someone had introduced in the upper house, and they'd had not quite success up there. Anyway, I thought, look, I'll like to have a go myself at getting it drafted in a way that I think may achieve an outcome. And I've just reintroduced it only a couple of weeks ago. It's been twigged, and each time I think it's better, but I think it's pretty close to the best you can get now. I've had professors of law look at it, I've had oncologists look at it, all sorts of people, and they are very happy with it. It doesn't do what some people want. It's not an open go. It's not, look, I'm feeling down today, I want to end my life. My bill doesn't cater for that. My bill is for people who are dying, who have got suffering unbearably, and who want to end their life in dignity without going through some of the terrible experiences that confront people who are dying.
Why is it so difficult? Because it's my kind of belief, and we took this out to the streets, and we got people to comment on the bill going back a few weeks, and most people are in favour of euthanasia, voluntary euthanasia. But doctors have been helping people out of their pain and out of this world, making that judgment themselves for a long time. Bringing the law in, sort of, if you like, putting a policeman at the side of the bed along with the doctor, how does that help?
Well, I think it's important to regularise what in some cases is happening behind closed doors. It's very much a grey area. The whole business of dying, if you like, is a grey area. We have palliative care, and I'm a great supporter of palliative care, but it doesn't always and can't always deliver what people want, because there's a number of people with some horrible diseases who cannot get adequate pain relief, and they suffer terribly. I know there was an ex-politician who, when people visited him, he'd ask them to kill him because he was in so much agony. Now, if we did that, you know, to a pet, we'd find ourselves in court. But I believe it is important that the law makes quite clear what you can and cannot do. And with palliative care at the moment in South Australia, if someone is in a coma or a vegetative state and a relative agrees, then a doctor can end that life. But I have some concerns with that, because one of the ways of ending the life is switching off the ventilator. I don't have a problem with that. Not resuscitating a person, I don't have a problem with that. But under our current law, you can starve someone to death or dehydrate them to death. And I had a lady come to me, it took 3 weeks for her son to die, being starved and dehydrated to death.
And that's okay?
That is okay, because under palliative care, that is called withdrawing support. Now, I find that a bit of I'm very uncomfortable with the starvation, the dehydration.
But does that mean that the person's just sort of going to fade to black and it's going to be quite a pleasant sort of...
Well, some doctors say, look, these people can't feel anything, they don't know. Well, they can't communicate. So these are people in a coma or vegetative state. What I'm concerned about in that case is that what is allowed is starvation and dehydration. They say, look, we're not feeding them, the person's going to die naturally. Well, I don't accept that. But my bill is not about that. My bill is about people who are mentally with it, who are dying. They've been checked to make sure that that is the case. They're not clinically depressed, and they say, I've had enough suffering, I don't want any more, I want to end my life now, and their life can be ended either by themselves with the doctor there, or the doctor can do it on their behalf.
Well, I'm the patron of the motor neuron disease.
Yeah, it's an awful disease.
It is the most appalling disease, and it's like a slow, agonising...
It's a hideous
thing. But when I see this, for example, Paul Russell, founder and director of the anti-euthanasia group HOPE, he argues, I have never seen any legislation anywhere in the world that provides true safety from the abuse of such legislation.
Well, that's not correct, because under my bill, for example, you have to have 2 doctors, one who is the treating doctor, one who's independent of the treating doctor. You have to have 2 independent witnesses to witness the request, and neither of them can benefit from the state of the person. So the argument that people will want to get rid of a rich relative is nonsense. But there's so many safeguards in this. If the person has to be told, look, there's a palliative care option maybe if you want to go down that path. I think that's a furphy that's trotted out, that you can't make the law tight. That my law is very tight, and anyone who would seek to abuse it by, in effect, killing someone, they would be guilty of murder. So
when does the bill come up? I know they've got one up in New South Wales.
No, I've introduced mine. I introduced it a couple of weeks ago. It's now in the notice paper. It's been spoken to by one other MP last Thursday. So it sits there. We only get, under our rules, 1 hour a fortnight for debating private members' bills, which is not a lot of time. But look, last year, the earlier version, which I've now improved, missed out by 1 vote. And I'm not overly optimistic, but I'm more confident that the mood is changing. And in fact, yesterday, an MP who voted against it, her people contacted me and said, look, can I provide a briefing? So look, the momentum is growing. I think people, when they understand what it's not about euthanasia, it's not about killing people against their will. It's people who have had enough, who might have motor neurone or a bone cancer, are in screaming agony. And for those people, doctors who are truthful will tell you that there's no total pain relief. Those people say, look, I've had enough. And I like the expression that someone told me today of their mother who suffered terribly in her last few weeks. And she said, let me have wings and fly away. I've had enough of this pain and suffering.
Yeah, we'll watch it with great interest. Can I put you in our impressive chair? And I'd like you to have 60 seconds. It may be on this subject, I don't know, but 60 seconds that Bob Such will use to change the world.
I'm passionate about a lot of things. I'd like to see some cures for cancer, obviously. I'm involved in the Melanoma Research Foundation. I'd like to see Australia move towards what I call a steady state economy, where we focus on growth in quality rather than growth in quantity. I don't see any point in having a large population for the sake of it, especially when we don't have all our people living at a high standard of living. We have people going to prison in great numbers. So we're obviously not doing something that's right, and I'd like to see us focus on quality, and that means early intervention and more opportunities for people in education, so anyone in our society can get a good education, and I think that would help address some of the problems that we face with increased incarceration in prison and a lot of social problems. It's not the total cure, but I think it would go a long way to making Australia a better place.
Bob Such, the independent member for Fisher in our state parliament. I agree with all of that he had to say in his 60 seconds in the chair, here in the Court of Public Opinion. And a quick thank you to our supporters, Hair Artistique, Tailors of Distinction, and also welcome to Taylor's Wines, one of the great wine companies of our state, who are joining the program as supporters. And I thank Bob Such for coming in. The whole thing about euthanasia is difficult. Let me tell you a quick story, true story. A doctor was confronted with a young patient, young girl, with very little chance of any quality of life in her life, he thought, and he had that moment where he decided to turn off the respirator. A nurse came along shortly after he had left the ward, didn't know, turned the respirator on. That little girl grew up, and today she sits in the House of Lords. And she has had an amazing life, a hard life, a different life, but a very worthwhile life. Interesting story. Let me introduce you to Sally Sutton and Natalie Holman, who, now I'm not sure whether it's Animal Liberation or it's whatever the group is. Bless you for being there and the work that you do in helping animals. Originally I wanted to talk to you about circuses and performing animals and rodeos and things like that, but it's such a huge area. Talk to me about where the legislators are. Where are their heads when it comes to looking after the interests of animals?
Well, certainly when it comes to farmed animals, there's very little legislation. What they have in place is codes of practice, which are essentially there to protect the farmer, not the animals. And the other problem is that a lot of the agriculture departments are the ones that look after the farmed animals, and so therefore there's a distinct conflict of interest with their welfare. So we really need to have an office of, an independent office of animal welfare to protect the interests of the animals, because the codes of practice are just simply recommendations. They are not enforceable.
And I know people feel passionately about all this kind of stuff. Why is it that the politicians don't get it?
I wonder that too, I really do. I think that they're totally out of touch. I think if they realised how passionate a lot of people are about animals and animal rights, they would act differently, particularly when it comes to the live export issue.
Now it's a very hot topic, the live animal export business, because it's only going to come up again and again and again, because these people, that Four Corners show and others, I mean, it's pure evil.
It is, and I've lost count of how many breaches of the SCAS have actually been documented, and they're the ones we know about. So there'd obviously be a whole lot going on that we don't know about. That would be the tip of the
but slowly we're going to be desensitised and going to say, oh, it's just another animal cruelty story. Oh, big deal.
Well, I hope not. I mean, I could never be desensitised to those images of, particularly that last cow in the Indonesian investigation, the one that they called Tommy, that was watching the other cattle being killed and stood there shaking and was obviously aware of what was going to happen.
Of course. Now, that's your specialty. Natalie, what do you do? What's your particular interest?
It's pretty varied.
And broad, I guess.
In particular, I guess, animals are used in entertainment and such as rodeos, circuses.
Well, I've got some footage which I'll pop in, which was taken about probably 10 years ago here in South Australia, of rodeos and what goes on there in the name of entertainment.
Yes, apparently.
Also, the thing that you see at the end of the movie, which is no animal was hurt in the production of this movie, apparently that's not altogether true.
Well, you'd like to think they weren't hurt. It's a bit hard to imagine when you see, for example, horses falling very hard in some scenes on their sides, animals used such as elephants, tigers that are used in films. I mean, these are wild animals that are in captivity, that are being made to perform in very unnatural environments, being deprived of, their family, in their natural instincts, their families, their what they usually do in the wild, their natural behaviours. I mean, it's the term and harm when it comes to films is, it's a pretty broad term, and I think even depriving animals of their basic instincts is pretty appalling.
Well, if the rodeos are any example of animals being involved in human entertainment, it could be and should be banned, because after all they can do computer-generated things these days, for the movies, I mean.
Yeah, they can.
Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you quickly was, in one of our 45-degree temperature days, and I've got a still which I pulled up beside the truck and took. This is a truck transporting thousands and thousands of poor, wretched chickens in these little yellow boxes. Now, if it was 45 degrees in my car, I can imagine it would have been 55 or 60 degrees in that trailer. Is there a law that can prevent these people from transporting animals on 45-degree days?
No,
No.
The short answer is no. There's no legislation to stop them doing it. The only legislation in place in South Australia is that they have to take reasonable steps to minimise the suffering of the animals, and that is enforceable, and the maximum fine is $2,500. But really, I can't see too many people being pulled up on that.
Well, you guys have got a lot to do,
Yeah.
but I think you've got public opinion on your side. Caged hens and free range, they tell me that people are doing a bit of a con on that, in that we go in and diligently buy free range, and they're not.
Well, once again, it's a legislation thing. There's no legislation saying what constitutes free range. So that's the problem there. There is an auditing scheme. The Humane Society do an auditing scheme in South Australia. I think that's national actually, where you can choose eggs that say humane choice, and they are genuine free range and haven't been debeaked.
Sally, great to see you. Natalie, thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks.
And
Jeremy.
wherever you see people who are supporting animals and the interests of animals, do what you can to help in the court of public opinion. Thanks for being with us. A couple of anniversaries, if it's your birthday or wedding anniversary or something like that this week. I hope it's going to be a very happy time for you. The feast day of St. Matthias, patron of carpenters, tailors and reformed drunks. However would you get that little lot? The Bee Gees were formally signed by Robert Stigwood here in Adelaide to his management on this day in 1967. The Beatles, still known as the Silver Beatles, started playing at the Cavern Club. 61 was the year. And the world's earliest known lottery was drawn in Belgium on this day in 1446. Now, if I was really on the ball, I'd be able to tell you
What they won.
who won it. But no, I can't. Coralie Cheney, the jury, ladies and gentlemen. Coralie Cheney,
Hi, Jeremy.
Michael Pratt,
How are
Christine Esau.
Hi, Jeremy.
I don't know if you guys, before we get on to the questions, which are many and varied today, I sort of found this. Paid out for dirty looks. Paid out for dirty looks. I said, that's interesting. Public
Wouldn't
servants...
happen to us, would it?
Oh, I don't know. I'm hoping
you
to
wouldn't
encourage
get
it.
dirty
I might
looks.
start encouraging it if there's money in it.
Well, apparently there is. Public servants have been paid workers' compensation for dirty looks and a coffee shop quarrel as bullied bureaucrats pocketed an average of $251,000 for mental stress. Now, Michael, do you remember the case with the purple penis on somebody's desk? Do you remember that story?
I do, and it wasn't even circumcised.
No, but the person, it wasn't even her desk.
No.
And she felt so threatened by this toy on somebody else's, she went on stress leave.
And got paid out. Pathetic.
Yeah. And then the other day, the Supreme Court gave a obese man $350,000. His doctor had to pay that because the doctor had not put him on, referred him to a weight loss program.
This is just crazy.
That's up for appeal, by the way.
Just
But
crazy.
the world has gone mad.
Yeah, yeah. And
Totally
while they
mad.
allow that to happen, more people will be stupid enough to do it.
I don't know. Now,
Get on with it, Jeremy.
are we a nation of sporting cheats? My God, we are led to believe so by our government and the media.
Well, I've
What is that?
I brought in a prop because the drug of choice in recent times for sporting athletes, for footballers, has been bovine colostrum. So I thought I'd just bring in a bit of spray on a sheep treatment, and apparently it puffs up your testicles or shrinks them. I'm not too sure.
You don't want to get that wrong.
No.
So you're testing it out?
Well, I am a bit, and Jeremy's going to go next off camera.
Oh, really?
But it is a significant issue. The Essendon Football Club have tested the boundary. In previous days, ladies of the panel, it was a pain-killing injection into an ankle that was rolled. Now, to get an advantage on their opponents, they are testing alleged injected drugs under doctor and nurse's supervision, and it is against the ASADA code. I mean, it is quite significant and serious that all these gorillas have come out all puffed up and bumped up. And I do think that it has been quite hysterical that the federal government announced this huge outcry, used the words disgusted, the people of Australia will be disgusted, but I think it's just got a bit of an election issue behind it.
Half-cocked issue, if you ask me.
Well, that's to do with those testicles.
Could be.
Yes.
I just don't feel that sport's like fun anymore. You know, you used to be able to go out
it's
on
big
the oval.
business.
It's big business now, and I understand that clubs need to run as a business. I understand that, but you've now got all the game fixing, you've got the drugs, and you've got the risk of huge injuries. It's no longer a game of cricket, so to speak, and go back and have a beer with the boys. It's now such big business, and there's egos, power and money involved, and then of course you risk all those problems.
Christine, why not just assume that everybody's on drugs?
Well, that's the assumption I think we're beginning to make. And so, you know, soon the only Olympics events will be able to run needlework, you know, because every single other...
Oh, but needlework, there you go.
Bring your own needle.
There's a risk.
But you see, but swimming has now crept into it. They are on still knocks and
absolutely.
And what is the drink they drink? Something.
Sheep dip, probably.
Sheep dip. But they're running around like a footy trip up and down the motel rooms in Manchester, knocking on doors, half naked. And we pay those athletes. I raise money, as you do, Jeremy, at the Quarter Club that Mark runs. We raise millions of dollars in Australia for these busted ass athletes to perform poorly.
Yeah, well,
at the London Olympics.
People might think about that twice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, sport has always meant to be something that we really enjoy and that we follow and we support.
Yeah, decent,
and it is
fair.
a game and it's fair, and it's that whole thing that was the Olympics as well. So we're losing all of that. I'm not nearly as interested in sport as I used to be.
This is what the people of Adelaide had to say about Australia's unfortunate newly gained image of sporting cheats.
I think we're absolutely a nation of sporting cheats, and I think that's what makes this nation great. We're underdogs and we want to win, and we will do whatever it takes to win. I think that's a good thing.
No, I don't think so. I think some go over the top and they get carried away with the occasion, and they enjoy a good time too.
No. Because it hasn't been proven, and I think if Australia does it, America definitely does it, and England definitely does it. So I think to label us as a nation of sporting cheats would be unfair. We're probably a world of sporting cheats.
Considering our medal tally at the last Olympics, I'm actually going to say no. We're not a nation.
Good point.
Yes, we are, and it's pretty sad because, you know, they're talented enough as it is, so they don't need drugs to, you know, enhance that. So, yeah.
I'd like to think we weren't. I'd like to think most people in participating in sport in Australia are trying their best and have got there by their own hard work. But sadly, the recent information about drug taking, it's very disappointing. Yeah.
I think perhaps the jury's out a bit. I mean, some accusations have been made, and there's a lot more to be presented before I'm convinced there's a major problem.
Yeah, well, there we go. Are you affected by opinion polls was the next question that we took out, because after all, the government, the present government, the Gillard government, can't miss a trick. I mean, if you woke up in the morning and you were Julia Gillard and you looked at the latest poll, why would you get out of bed and bother? But anyway, will it change the way people vote? Here's what you say.
To a certain extent, but I generally try to question it all and build my own opinion on it. So more than one opinion poll helps make a reasoned sort of decision.
I don't pay enough attention to media. I don't pay enough attention to other people's opinions to be affected, I suppose.
No, because I think people who actually vote in opinion polls are ignorant.
I've never actually been asked to be in an opinion poll. I would like to be. I've got some great opinions, but not really affected, unless these opinions are my own.
I wouldn't vote for someone just because they're doing well or doing badly, because that kind of defies the point of democracy, really.
I don't mind Julia Gillard. I think she's doing bad at the moment. Oh, she's alright. Yeah,
she's down. She's at least...
She's good.
She's got some good concepts.
She's beautiful hair.
Wonderful.
Not at all. I completely ignore the polls because they have like a new one every week, different results. And also I think the politicians are affected by the polls. They change their minds based on whether the points go up or down. So I think we ignore the polls, maybe the politicians will start ignoring them as well.
Yeah, I hate it. So, I mean, it's just another thing. I mean, it does matter, my vote, but at the same time, I can't be stuffed going to do it. And yeah, I hate doing it. I wish I didn't have to, just like Europe. Yeah.
Not in the least. Not in the least.
Neither am I. I have my own opinion. I can make up my own mind.
Coralie?
Personally, no. It's not going to affect me at all. I think really it's much more of a case of the media using it as the hype to bring in issues, as opposed to anyone's necessarily being influenced by it. I don't know.
There's two, Jeremy, both organisations, News Limited and Fairfax, run the polls. It is a big income earner for a front page headline. News Limited have more money to run a more comprehensive poll. Fairfax don't. They don't poll as extensively as the states. And I think polling just has firmed up the fact that the federal Labor government are in all sorts of trouble. Julia Gillard doesn't need a poll to know that she won't be the Prime Minister again. She's going out to Rooty Hill, it's got nothing to do with drugs in sport, to spend a week out there in a motel to try and shore up the Western electorate. There's 2 million people in Western Sydney, more than Adelaide's got. So she doesn't need to know polls not spelling, is spelling the doom for her.
Safe seats are always predictable. There are swing seats, and I suppose
not in Western Sydney, because that is the heartland of the Labor Party.
Absolutely, but I'm just saying that I don't think polls affect too many people other than swinging voters, and even then they are less guided by the polls and more guided by their mates at the pub on Friday night.
The poll is driven by the question. If you load the question up, knowing that the organisation wants to know the answer, of course they're going to say, do you think it's hot or it's cold? Do you think there's drugs in sport? Well, if they say yes, that's an opinion. So the questions, and that's why people talk about the polling that's done in the States is very extensive on gender, on race, on issues. Here it really is just personality based.
Have you ever been polled though?
No.
No.
And neither have I been rung up about what television station you watch. And I'm sitting home there, no one rings me.
Oh, I did have that once on radio.
You mentioned television or radio. That's sort of like a poll. The ratings are a kind of a poll. When management is confronted with a program, and you've sort of seen this a bit on Channel 10 lately, when your management is confronted by a poll that says, we don't like the show, they don't go out and argue with the audience, they get rid of the show. Now, why doesn't Gillard just simply say, okay, I accept it, I take it on the chin, you don't like my government, or make some attempt to find out why they don't like her government? And I can tell you, the carbon tax is rubbish. There have been so many lies and backflips and changes of minds, and the whole connection between the union movement and the political arm, it just really is a mess.
Here's one. You talk about television, you two girls, Miss Bling 1990 and 92. If you were polled, would you tell anyone that you actually watched At Home with Lara Bingle? Would you say yes or no? Would you admit to it?
Well, nobody ever saw it.
I would. No. Come on.
Are you watching it?
Sharon Stone. What about you? Would you say you watched Lara Bingle?
Now, here's one to...
Don't put your hands up.
Here's an interesting one. I would have put this in the no-brainer department, really, along with, immunisation. For God's sake, people have conspiracy theories, but against fluoride. Now, fluoride, I have been told, is the greatest single health initiative that this country's ever seen, but apparently not. Fluoride is banned in Sweden, Denmark, Holland, abandoned in Belgium and West Germany, still used, it says here, in the US, Australia and New Zealand and the UK. Now, what's happened in Queensland, they tell me, is that they have made it optional. Bundaberg doesn't, Cairns doesn't, Fraser doesn't, various municipalities or districts in Canada have decided to take the fluoride out of the water, all because of a scare that it's doing something other than keeping our teeth from getting cavities.
Well, Bundaberg has rum, so why would you need fluoride?
Okay, this is what the people of Adelaide have to say.
I don't like fluoride in our drinking water at all. I think it's not good for us. I think it's, okay, it helps the teeth apparently, but I don't think our children should be having it.
Sometimes I will choose tap water over bottled water for the fluoride because I probably don't look after my teeth enough. However, having something extra put in my water does make me uncomfortable. At the same, I don't have enough information to say that it's wrong. But at the same time, I am glad that there's something for my teeth in there.
I've always been totally for fluoride in the drinking water, clean teeth, the whole thing, but there's always that kind of conspiracy theory angle that makes me think twice about it. But I'm pretty much for it until someone comes up with some hard evidence that maybe it's a bad thing.
I think it's been very good. Yes, I think we've got a nation of children with a lot better teeth than I've got as a result of it. So I think it's a very positive initiative.
I'd rather not have it, to be quite honest. I don't think it's a good idea to put something like that into the water for everyone to have. We're yet to find out what long-term problems it may cause.
And I also think that it's a decision people could make personally. There are other ways to get fluoride if you really believe it. I just don't think it's fair to impose beliefs of a few or even the majority on everybody.
Christine.
Well, what's the thing that it's supposed to be doing? I mean, I'm really pleased that I don't have black holes all over my teeth and my children's teeth, so fluoride's got to be great as far as I'm concerned. It's a no-brainer. You don't have to think about it. It happens automatically for you.
But people are taking it really seriously
I know.
and they are demanding of their legislators
I know,
that
so,
they take the
unless it's got
fluoride out.
arsenic in the fluoride, I'm not too concerned.
Well, it is a chemical, but as a national program, Jeremy, our southern area of Mount Gambier, which draws all of its water out of the Blue Lake, is there fluoride put in the lake?
No, it's put in afterwards in the treatment plant.
Right. Or maybe it's psychosomatic, and just because I believe I've got fluoride in the water, my teeth are okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sticking a sheep drink.
But also, a lot of people are now drinking bottled water anyway. They're not actually drinking tap water anyway.
Can you believe that people will go
and
the
cost of
pay for bottled
as opposed
water?
to using the rainwater or something like that.
Somebody, I can't remember who it was, Groucho Marx or someone like that, said there's one born every minute. Gross underestimation of the truth. There must be millions born every minute.
But bottled water is something like $3 a litre when you multiply 75. And another thing you should be taking up, Jeremy, is there a service station you can go in and actually buy one bottle of water rather than 3 for $5 in a Mars bar? I'm sick of it.
And upselling the water.
Yeah, I'm sick of it. Yes. The jury is dismissed. Thank you again very much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
One thing we'll get on to next week in our questions on the street, this business of nuclear power. Maybe the time has come for us in Australia to consider the benefits of nuclear power as opposed to all of the other options. We'll run that past you next week. Every once in a while in this business you get faced with something of a dilemma because you have somebody to talk to who's really interesting. But seldom could you find anyone who on so many different levels is not just interesting but downright fascinating. To me anyway, and I hope to you, because it's something of a link with history, recent history in South Australia. Let me introduce you to Stavros Pippos. Stavros, thank you for your time.
It is my pleasure, Jeremy.
No, it's my pleasure because I've known you as a senior television executive since I came to Adelaide in '76. But this side of your life, and both sides are fascinating, but this side where you have gone into photography and so much beautiful photography. We'll get an opportunity as we talk to sort of flick through some of the pages and show you this exquisite work. There's Beneath the Southern Cross, which is the newest of these books. There's Light on Earth, photographs of South Australia, and Shades of Ochre, the colours of South Australia. And they're all absolutely exquisite. So while you were big time in television, Channel 7, which somehow became Channel 10.
Yes.
Which was a whole story in itself. You were doing this.
Yes. I started, pardon me, well, going back, I became interested in photography when I was about 12 years old.
Yeah.
And it remained with me throughout my life. But of course, during those very, very busy years in the early days of television, I couldn't devote a great deal of time to it. It was around about 1980 when I was approached by the Harndorf Academy to sponsor a Hans Heisen exhibition, for the station to sponsor it. And of course, loving all work that Heisen did, I jumped at it and I said, of course I'll sponsor it. And that introduced me to the Flinders Ranges through his work. I had at the station a wonderful art director in a man called Igor Horenko. And Igor was a Flinders file.
Yes. Well, he's a legend too, isn't he?
Yes, and a very good painter and a very good friend. And so he said, well, look, as you're interested in the Flinders, come with me, I'll show them to you. So he had a four-wheel drive, off we went, and it took just one trip, and I was captivated by it. I loved it. So I came back and I convinced the station that my company vehicle should be a four-wheel drive because it had some heavy lifting to do. And they agreed. And so I then frequently, on a Friday night after work, Igor and I would hop in the four-wheel drive and we'd go to the Flinders Ranges, come back Sunday night, and I'd photograph. It was never intended to be a book, but after several years I was encouraged to maybe put my work into a book, and that was the beginning. That book was released in 1993.
How many books ago was that?
5.
5. It's incredible output.
Yes, there's a lot of pictures.
And it's not digital, or it is?
No, it's all film.
All
no,
film.
look, I grew up with film, and people try and draw me into an argument with digital, and I won't be drawn because photography through the ages has encountered many changes, and digital is just another one of those changes.
But the purity of film, I mean, I've talked to people who love vinyl rather than CDs,
yes.
and
Yes.
the reason
Yes.
is sort of purist in a sense, but there's real validity to it.
Yes.
There's
yes.
warmth, and there's
yes.
something that you
Yes.
get with the film, or you get with the vinyl.
Indeed. Well, that is correct. A lot of my work I shoot on 8 by 10 inch film. It's a very large sheet of film, a very large camera, wooden camera.
Wow.
But the quality is superb. And
well, I can see that. I mean, it's breathtaking.
It's superb. So I've stuck with film. I know film. I don't own a digital camera. I may well own one in the future. But for the time being, I'm quite happy. And I like the process. I like getting my hands into the darkroom and physically making the picture.
And you did that in television too, didn't you?
I did it in television.
And is it part of folklore, or did you really start off sweeping the floor at
No,
Channel
I did.
7?
I can tell you, it was the 20th of July, 1963. I started at Channel 7, and I walked into the studio, and Ernie Sigley was doing an Australian Motors commercial. And they said, lad, I was 18, look, we need someone to sit in the back of the vehicle. Would you like to do it? And of course I said yes. I put my hand up. I was doing some theatre work prior to that, and I saw myself as an aspiring young actor. But that was the beginning of it, and within several months I became a little bit disillusioned. I wasn't moving quick enough, and I said, look, I think I'll move on. And then every department in the station wanted me. And I was offered, as a cinematographer in the newsroom, I was offered a job in the engineering department. I was offered to go onto camera.
Which one did you take?
I went on to the floor crew because I'd been sweeping the floors for 3 or 4 months. And they trained me as a cameraman. But Keith MacDonald, the late Keith MacDonald, was the general manager of the time. And he retired, and they invited any member of staff to go to his farewell. And it was a bit cheeky of me, I thought at the time, and I was pretty shy. I thought, no, I have great respect for this man, because on the day of my employment, he took me into his office and he said, "Your name is Stavros, and never change it."
No.
Not that I had any intention of changing it, but it's the greatest piece of advice, because all I had to do is pick up the phone and say Stavros here, and it didn't matter whether I was calling Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane or Perth, they knew who it was. I was probably the first non-Anglo-Saxon name in the Australian television industry.
And you went from that beginning to learn basically everybody's job, do everybody's job, and finally the general manager's job.
Well, in fact, that function of his retirement, he sent me a little note afterwards, and he said, "You will run this company one day."
Yeah.
And that's why he employed me at the age of 18.
Well, he was an astute man. What was the best of all of the jobs that you did?
Oh, look, directing television shows, bar none. I loved the art of directing.
And back in the days when, of course, we did produce television in South Australia.
Yes. I was fortunate in many respects when Disney on Parade first came to Australia. It was brought out by TVW7 in Perth, and they were looking for a young director. The American outfit were looking for a young director to join the team, the Disney on Parade team, and learn as the second director in the event of the American director falling ill. And that taught me so much about television.
One of the things that I cannot understand was how the industry, in the state that it's in at the moment, how come they haven't rung you up? Why are you not running a television station?
Probably because they think I'm too old. I'm too old now, you see.
You're experienced, you're not old. And look at the mess they've made of the industry. I can't believe it.
Yes, no, it has changed dramatically, and unfortunately not for the better. But that is the way it is.
We need you.
Well, I'm enjoying out there with the
Look,
kangaroos
I know you are.
And up in a helicopter with Shane. It's been marvellous. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the books. And I want you to autograph mine, which was given to me for Christmas, which is why I got the idea to get you on the show.
Yes, yes.
Keep it up.
Thank you,
Keep
Jeremy.
snapping.
I will, and I can be found any time out there in the bush.
Stavros Pippos in the Court of Public Opinion. The program that shoots the breeze, never the messenger. I really like that line.
Do you?
Let me introduce you to our intrepid show business reporter, Betties, Samis, who's back from where?
Hollywood.
Hollywood.
It's a Hollywood theme today.
Yeah, well, at the Academy Awards. Did you watch every agonising moment of it?
I actually love it. I love the fashion.
I love it when they fall up the stairs.
Oh, well, yes.
I can identify with that.
Have you fallen?
No, I fell down the stairs. Doesn't matter. Let's not go there.
Oh, yes.
Daniel Day-Lewis, first man in history to win 3 Best Actor awards, they tell me.
And you've seen Lincoln?
Yes, I have. I'm fascinated, absorbed by that whole part of American Civil War history, but I don't expect everybody to. I suppose somebody would see it and think it a bit tedious, but if you loved it, or loved that era and the political times in which it is set, it's fascinating.
Well, I saw it. It was, kind of difficult to understand in bits.
Well, I can understand it not getting Best Picture.
Right.
But I can certainly understand Daniel Day-Lewis getting Best Actor, because it was a masterful portrayal. And lots of people have had a go at Lincoln.
Oh, they have.
Fascinating man. He only ever went to school. He had 1 year of formal education in his life.
And look what he achieved.
Absolutely.
There's hope for all of us. Okay.
Inspirational.
Inspirational.
Now, what's opening and what's closing?
Okay, well, audiences are falling in love with Driving Miss Daisy.
Yes.
In Brisbane, sold out 3 weeks.
Got to get him into the garage.
We'll have to get him into the garage. Sold out, and standing ovation, tears in the audience's eyes as well. So now it's going to Sydney. There's a wait list for Perth. And Melbourne, it'll be there for 5 weeks from the 5th of April, and of course it's coming to Adelaide as well. So can't wait for that in May. Now, I've been to the Clipsal lunch today and had a great time. Angela Condis always puts on a fabulous lunch. But listen to this. Opening night at Her Majesty's Theatre, Driving Miss Daisy. You can get a ticket to the show, a reserve, and you can also go to an after party later where Angela Lansbury and the crew, everybody will be there.
That's
so
great.
you can get to meet all the cast and the crew.
That mean everybody who goes to the show goes to the after.
That's right.
Party. Okay.
Yes, and you know, considering a reserve is like about $130, this is $160, so it's not bad. It's great value. It's going to charity, to the Advertiser Sunday Mail Foundation.
Yes.
Look, there's not very many tickets left because this story actually went nationally. All the papers picked it up, so I think there's going to be people flying in from all over Australia for their chance to meet the cast.
Yep.
How great will that be? And of course, it's Fringe time, and we all. I know what you think of the Fringe.
Well, you know, I don't get out a lot.
I wanted to change your mind about the Fringe, which is what I have done this today. I spotted these beautiful ladies. It's Jenny Winter's Wonderland. They are currently at the Holden Street Theatre, and I know how much you love these kind of acts.
Yes.
So I wanted to change your mind about the Fringe
Right.
to let you know that there are these types of acts at
And
the
they
Fringe.
do bumper to bumper, dang, dang,
They
dang,
do
the ding a dong ding.
your kind of music. You're going to love it. So I've brought them in to the garage, especially for you, and they're going to take us out today, Jenny Winter and Betty and the Betties.
How are we going to do it?
Quite easily. We're going to throw to them after here.
All right, I think that sounds great. All right, we got to go, but we'll go out with musical style. Have a lovely week. The Court of Public Opinion is my registered trademark. Believe in yourself, and we'll see you next time.
Well, here's the verse to this song, 'cause I don't wanna wait a moment too long to say that I'm gonna get you on a slow boat to China.